All right, guys, today we're going to talk about domestic violence. This episode really turned out to be a lot harder than I expected it to be to talk about. So it may be a little scattered. Bear with me. I hope that it helps somebody. Thank you for watching. Hello. All right. You guys, I have talked several times, mentioned my prior relationship. And a lot of times when I do speak out about the abuse that I sustained in that relationship, I almost always, there is somebody, why did you stay so long? And so I want to address that a little bit and talk about the times that the police failed me. Like, severely failed me. So, I was in that relationship from 1990 until 2011. So, things progress as the relationship gets on. And there's a lot of, when you're in specifically an abusive relationship, there's a lot of emotional manipulation that goes on. But in this particular case, I had, we were in a place where when I would come home from work, he would either be taking my phone or taking my car keys to make sure that I was stuck there. And I'm willing, I 100% was willing to sacrifice the phone to keep the car keys. So normally when I would get home, I got to a point where I would start hiding them, or before I would come home, I would start plotting an exit in case I needed it. So, it got to a point where, well, it didn't get to a point. It was already at a point where he wasn't necessarily hitting me, but he was manhandling me and putting me in corners and backing me into small spaces. And that's why I deal with so much claustrophobia now. Are you going to be okay while we talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't even stop to ask.
Yeah, the law don't have to get it.
Okay, so
I hope he knows that.
We get to a so it's constantly like putting me into corners and backing me into places. So one day it had been going on where it was progressively getting worse and worse and worse, and he was a bit unhinged. It wasn't the manipulation it normally was. It was straight out bat crazy. Okay. Which later on, it turns out this person was diagnosed as bipolar, to my understanding. So that makes a little bit of sense right now. But not the behavior doesn't make sense, but the switch in the moods that I would see, I always thought that was the case. I just never had confirmation that that's what it was, is what I mean. So we had went to the store, and I had made up my mind when we went to that store, that it was a Walmart. And I was like, when we go in, we're going to go in separate directions, and I am going to leave that store and not come back. I was leaving whatever I had to. So, I believe at that point my kids were old enough to stay home by themselves, and they were at home because they did not see any of this that I remember. So at the when we first went in, I said I was going to the bathroom. Hey, where are you going? I'll just meet up with you. He caught on to that real fast. So he wanted the keys and the phone. So I gave him both. But I still made up my mind. I was out. So I left and went out the back of the Walmart, up a huge ass hill, down the road. Here he comes driving down the road. Did I mention that my ex was a private investigator? I don't think I've mentioned that before, have I? Okay. I don't know how he knew I went out the back, if he was watching me the whole time or what the case may be. But I saw him coming, and I was just trying to get to a payphone or somewhere for somebody to help me call for help. So he kind of pulls into this gas station that I had gotten to and started making a scene, and I started yelling for people to call the police. Well, they called the police, and the police showed up. They asked for both of our IDs, so I had to go back to the car to get my ID, gave them my ID, and they came back and said there was a warrant for my arrest. And I was like, for me? I said, yeah. Like, I don't understand how there could be a warrant for my arrest. So, rewind. I know I've told you guys before that my mom was an addict in a in and out kind of situation. So in my adult years, we had horrible credit because he really kept me under a financial thumb. And so my mom had financed my car for me months before, maybe 6 months before. I had an incident happen at work. I left and was going to work. I got pulled over on the way. They told me that my tag had been suspended. And I was like, what does that mean? They said, well, your insurance lapsed. And when your insurance lapsed, the state suspends your tag. Okay, so they towed the car. I had to go back and get it. Long story short, what happened was I had given my mom the money for the insurance. But I don't know if she was trying to rob Peter to pay Paul or what the case may be. But she didn't pay it when I gave it to her, and it ended up lapsing. I had to pay a fine to the state. I had to pay a fine for the insurance, all of that. They gave me a ticket. I went to the courthouse. I paid the ticket. This ticket apparently was a must appear ticket. But the clerk at the court just took the money and gave me the receipt and went on about their business. So now here I am 6-7 months later in this situation where I need their help, and they took me to jail for a ticket I had paid for. So this was Gwinnett County, Georgia, by the way. I'm just going to go on and say it. So then I'm in there. Honestly, it seems like I was in there with a couple of hookers. And girl was like, I'm trying to call him to get me out. And he's being cuckoo-cuckoo, right? And she's like, listen, you're better off here. And she wasn't wrong, but all I could think about was that I needed to get out to get away and to get my kids out of this situation. So he comes up with the money to get me out. All the while, the whole time I'm in there, he is like constantly accusing me of stuff, constantly questioning me, constantly cussing me out. Well, what did you really do with the money? I paid the insurance. So we get back to the house. I find the receipt. When I go to court for it, the judge was a total ass to me and said, what happened. And so I said, my last name at the time started with an A. So I was in the beginning. And I said, they said I didn't appear for court, but I wasn't told I needed to appear for court. I've already paid it. And he said, that's not possible. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to go off to the side and you're going to write down every traffic violation you have had in the last, since I had my license or some crap, and wait until the end. And if you get even one of those things wrong, I'm going to suspend your license permanently. And I was like, how am I going to keep a job and get out of this situation? I'm going to cry now. How am I going to keep a job and get out of this situation and take care of my kids with no license? And we don't live in an area where there's public transit, really. And I was terrified. I was really terrified. So I sat down and I racked my brain and wrote out like every ticket, because I went through a stage where I had some tickets. And
what kind of tickets?
Speeding.
Okay.
Speeding. Thankfully, while I was doing that, they took my receipt and went and researched it. Now, he did not offer any apology for it or anything. And in all honesty, I probably could have, I don't know if I could have gotten somebody and told them what the situation was or not. I feel like my ex-husband was up my ass and I couldn't speak freely. So yeah, they ended up like dropping whatever charges they had, come up with, because they had no legal reason for having done it. But, I know a lot of people would say they still got you out of the situation at the moment because they took me to jail and moved me away from him, but it actually fueled the situation because he saw it as that I was lying to him. It, like, all the things in his head that I was lying to him about whatever, and it really just fueled whatever rage he had going on. And it was months between go to jail and go to court, and it didn't die down during any of that time. It just kept ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. So it's, the police isn't always helpful to you in that situation. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, if you're in that situation, why don't you call the police? It didn't benefit me any.
No. The second time's even worse.
Yeah. And I'm gonna do that one in another episode, because I really just don't think I can right now.
Too good. The good thing about it is that we got each other, right? You ain't got to worry about that life no more.
No.
And all I can say is he thinks he got away with something. He thinks he does.
It's one of the many reasons that I am so grateful for this man and this life that I have. I made a video one day talking about I went to the mall or something. I'm not really like a go shopping all day kind of person. I don't like the crowds. And he called to see when I thought I might be home. Simply because he wanted to know whether or not he should wait for dinner. But there was no, where are you at? When are you going to be here? What are you doing? Who's with you? What turn on your location. None of that. And I'm grateful for you, honey.
I love you.
I love you. So, I'll do another one for the other time.
Yeah, the other time we'll talk about how she got done wrong, and even go a step further. In my opinion, this county owes her money for this next one.
So this happened in 2 different counties,
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
2 completely different counties that I called the police for help and ended up in a worse situation. There is a silver lining to the second one. There is. But yeah, if you have friends or someone you know that's in a situation like that, trust me, in most cases, they're plotting their exit. They're plotting and planning it. They're trying to figure it all out, all while being completely manipulated, financially held hostage, and mentally and physically broke down on a daily basis. They may not be able to do it on the time frame that you think they should, but they're trying.
Yeah.
All you can do is offer options that are actual feasible options and support. If you can't offer the options or the support, keep your mouth shut. Seriously.
And parents on this one, keep an eye on your teenage daughters.
Yes.
So I'm just going to hit a high point here. This is where me and her have talked about this several times, and I've looked at her and said, "What made you think he was worth crap?" But
I started dating him when I was 14 and he was 8.
he was a senior and she was an 8th grader. Okay.
He actually was a sophomore.
He was a sophomore. He was supposed to be a senior.
She was supposed to be a senior.
But that's not even it. The age difference at that age. Okay, there's a big age difference from us, but we were adults and grown and kids gone and stuff like that. But he was 18, she was 14. He just had a baby with another girl that she wouldn't let him. He had no rights to. And then he's preying on another young teenager. And that's what they do.
It all makes
I
sense
know of
now. It didn't then.
I know of more situations that I won't bring up here that don't have to do with him, but with young girls and guys that are the same way. Keep an eye on your daughters.
Yes, because it makes you an easy target. But I'll be honest with you, I think that they prey upon young women in situations like mine where they don't have their parents around. There's not. I mean, I had my grandmother and she was looking out and did the best she could to try to handle teenage rebellion, and make sure that I was supervised at all times. But I think the fact that I was missing something emotionally in my life made me a prime target for an abuser. It really did. Yeah. So if you're the grandparent that is raising children, one, bless you. From the child, thank you. Because I would not be the person that I am today if it was not for my grandmother. One thing that I wish had been a resource back then is support and therapy. So if you're in that situation and you have the availability to find those resources for your grandchildren, it will really help in them combating being put in situations like this. It'll help them to find other confidences and strengths that will help them to recognize those things that I didn't at the time. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for following along. Please leave us some comments. I'm going to try to find some national resource to put in the details here. I did not before, but I do now. I highly recommend local domestic violence centers. Somebody does not have to put their hands on you for it to be abuse.
No.
I did not recognize that at the time. It took being in counseling many, many years later for me to recognize that it was still a great deal of abuse. And they provide you with counseling. They provide you with different resources because statistically, if you get out of one of those relationships, you're more likely to go back into one. Don't be that statistic. Give yourself the support and the knowledge to find you're happy and you're safe, like I did. Because it's out there and you don't deserve to be treated that way. So, we will see you all next time.